When you create an invoice in QuickBooks Online, you're not just letting your customer know that they owe you money. You're also directly impacting your financial reports. When you send an invoice, several things are happening behind the scenes. Your accounts receivable is increasing, and oftentimes your income is also increasing. That's if you're on accrual basis. So let's go ahead and look at what actually happens to our reports when we enter an invoice in QuickBooks. For a baseline, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my balance sheet, which is here under Standard Reports and then Balance Sheet. So we can see right here, I have accounts receivable currently in slight excess of $6,600. Okay. One other number that I want to call your attention to is my net income number down here, right? That's currently sitting at 35,000 and change. Now you'll notice I am on accrual basis accounting method. We'll look at both accrual and cash in a moment and discuss the differences, but let's just remember those two numbers for now. So if I go to create a new invoice, I would go up to plus create and then invoice. And then just for the sake of ease, I'm going to put in one of my customers here, and I'm going to use one of my preset products and services. Okay, this is a large enough amount that it's going to quickly and easily show up on my reports so that we can really demonstrate this process. So when you are sending an invoice to a customer, one important thing to remember is that if you have their email attached and you send this out, they're going to be able to see this and any updates that you make to it in real time. Okay. Now, since this is a dummy account, all the emails are fake. I'm just going to go ahead and hit save and close so that we can go back and look at our reports. Now, once I have done this, we're immediately going to see a change to our accounts receivable. Where we had a little over $6,600 before, we now have over $10,000 because of that transaction for $3,000 and change. Okay. Additionally, we're also going to see that our net income went up. It was at $35,000 and change. Now it's at $38,000 and change. Okay. These are the real tangible effects that we're having on our profit and loss and our balance sheet when we enter an invoice in QuickBooks Online. Okay. Now, the slight difference here is between cash and accrual basis. If we're on accrual basis accounting, we're going to be recognizing that income right away as soon as we send the invoice to our customer. If we're on cash basis, we're not only not going to see accounts receivable on our balance sheet, but we are not going to see that income until we actually receive the cash into our bank account. Here is the important thing to remember though. Our accounts receivable reports are very useful to us as business owners, whether we are on accrual or cash basis accounting, because it is a running total of who owes us, how much they owe us, and for how long they have owed us. So even if we're cash basis, we still want to make sure that our accounts receivable reports are complete, accurate, and up to date, because that helps us project cash flow in our business. Sending the invoice out is, of course, no guarantee of payment. It's not guaranteeing that cash is going to change hands. It's just a notice to the customer saying, hey, you owe me this money for services or products provided, right? So all that in mind, let's also take a quick look at our accounts receivable aging reports so that we can see how this particular transaction shows up. If I go back to reports and then standard reports, accounts receivable is going to be in the Who Owes You section of your reporting. So if I go to this accounts receivable aging summary, I'm going to see exactly what we just talked about, right? We have who owes us, how much they owe us, and how far past due it is if it is past due. Knowing this information is incredibly valuable as a business owner because it helps us forecast when we are going to be receiving the cash that people owe us. If I'm looking at this and the invoice is current and I extend my customers 30 days of terms to pay, I know I'm not going to see these amounts of money for probably about 30 days, maybe earlier if I'm lucky, right? Conversely, we can look here and see that there are some people who are past due in their payments. We might be wanting to follow up with them so that we can get this cleared off our books, okay? Another important thing here is that we have to be sure, especially if we are using the invoicing feature in QuickBooks Online, that we are going through the full accounts receivable process because we have created accounts receivable. If we're not receiving payments against our invoices, that means that we are not basically marking them as paid. We are not telling QuickBooks that they have been paid. And if you're on accrual basis, it actually is possible to duplicate your income by doing this. And basically that happens when we have an outstanding invoice, which you can see on accrual basis already counts towards our income. And then we have a transaction that comes through our bank feed that also gets classified as income. That means I could theoretically say that I've received this $3,570 twice. And I certainly don't want to be paying tax on more money than I have received. Okay. A few things to keep in mind here. When you're using invoices and accounts receivable, there are some things that also happen behind the scenes if you have larger intricacies built into QuickBooks. If you have sales tax set up in QuickBooks, for example, your sales tax is going to be calculated based on when the invoice is entered, not necessarily when the customer pays you. So you might be paying the sales tax on their invoice before you have actually received payment from them, depending on the timing of it all. Okay? Additionally, we want to be sure that we are going through this whole process correctly for the final step here, which is that we want our customer dashboards to be correct. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this actually looks like. If I go over here to all apps and then to my customer hub, I can go to customers and leads. Now, this is a slight change from the prior navigation in QuickBooks Online. Customers was something under sales and get paid, right? It is now its own separate item in here. So in order to get to our customer center, this is where we have to go. If I click customers and leads here and then do a quick little search for Grace Holloway, because that's who we sent that invoice to, I can see that her open balance is $3,570, okay? The other thing, again, to keep in mind, if we are using QuickBooks holistically, if we're sending invoices out to our customers, they are seeing this information as well. If they click on this invoice, it will show them that it has not been paid, okay? If we do not receive payments against it properly, it will continue to show as unpaid, even if they have sent us payment. So that's something that we really have to keep in mind. This holistic process is phenomenal from the standpoint of I can send an invoice out to my customer, they can pay it electronically, the system can record everything, and I can have my money in a few days. That is wonderful. But the downside also is that with this automation, sometimes customers might be getting reminder invoices about amounts they've already paid if we're not using the back end of our systems correctly. So understanding what's going on behind the scenes is a fantastic way to prevent that from happening and make sure that everyone you interact with in the course of running your business is happy and has current and up-to-date information. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Holly from Accrual Mistress Bookkeeping and Consulting. If you found this helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments below. I'll absolutely get to them.